Good evening, everybody. I'm going to lead off this evening because we need to elect officers for the new year. But it's required under our criteria for each year that we do a election of officers. So we can do that one of two ways. We can do it by ballot, on paper, or we can just do it verbally. However you would prefer, or feel comfortable with doing that. We'll need to elect a chair and a backup for that chair as well. So is everyone okay with doing this verbally, or?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to do that before we do the approval of minutes, folks, so that the chair can take care of that when the chair is elected.
I can't understand going.
Do we have any nominations for the chairman?
Building, it's on the back side of the place and nobody will ever see.
Don't everybody rush to it once,
I nominate Bill to continue his good job.
I would second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for Mr. Gilster to be elected chairman. Are there any other nominees? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote on electing Mr. Bill Gilster as chairman for the 2019 calendar year. Do I hear all the yays, please? Speak up. Yes. Yay. Raise your hands, please. Okay. Is that 4 to? Could we do that again? Raise
I'm
your
not
hand.
sure Mr. Honey heard you.
Could we get a show of hands for the chairman? Mr. Gilster's been nominated.
I don't hold any kind of office at all.
Yeah, they're asking for him, voting for him. We're trying to put the vote.
I just need to get it on the books.
All in favor, aye?
All in favor? Okay, we got, that's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you.
Wilson.
Thank you, Board, for your vote of confidence.
You can take it from here now, and you need a vice chairman as well, and a secretary, and normally, as you know, that would be yours truly, but you still need to officially do that, so.
Okay, so I guess the next order of business is to elect the vice chair.
Yeah.
Do I have a recommendation or a nomination for somebody to fill the position of vice chair?
I'd nominate Mr. McKee. Excellent experience.
I second? I don't know, can I second it?
I'll second.
Okay, I've heard a motion and a second.
Who was the motion on that?
Mr. McKee for vice president. Any discussion or any further nominations? Okay, all in favor of Mr. McKee being vice chair, raise your right hand. Anybody against? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I guess we have to nominate, we have to come up with a secretary, and that's
Yes,
you? So we have to formalize that together?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Do I have a recommendation for a nomination for somebody as our secretary?
I nominate Mr. Huggins.
Is there a
Second.
second? Any discussion or further nominations?
Who did,
Pardon me?
no, who did it?
Mr. Huggins.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll second. All right.
Okay. All in favor of Mr. Huggins being secretary for the board, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 100%. Okay, any other officers that we need to?
That should do it.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from 11/8/2018. And Mr. Huggins, I had given you a
Yes.
couple of corrections. Are they, should we state those again?
I'm
or-
not sure. You might want to restate those corrections, and so I've got it on the record, and then I'll make sure that they are in the final version of the minutes to be recorded. But go ahead and restate those if you don't mind.
So when you're reviewing the minutes, I had given a couple of corrections to Mr. Huggins, one of which was item 1, call to order. It says Mr. Gilster, acting chairman. I guess I was actually chairman at the time, so it should be corrected. And then the other one was on page 3, under clarification of preceding statement, in the second sentence, it says industrial uses in section, then the section is blank.
Correct.
And what should that be?
It's, I don't see it on the page, but I'll make sure that the correct number is in there.
So when we make a nomination to accept the minutes, we should make those 2 corrections as part of the recommendation, I guess.
Yes, you could either go ahead and vote on them tonight, with, addition upon those corrections being made, or you can withhold it till the next meeting, but whenever that may be.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I so move as corrected, the minutes as corrected.
A second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Are there any discussion about the minutes? If so, please raise your right hand if you're in agreement of accepting the minutes as modified. Motion carried. Okay, now we entered in public comment. Is there anybody that wants to make a public comment? Then the next item is the primary reason we're here is to deal with the special exception. And first, I guess, Mr. Huggins, could we have a staff update?
Yes, Mr. Gilster. You will recall that we had a previous case at the same location back in November for a similar use. It was a building to be used for storage of materials. And this case tonight is a similar request for a storage building, which will be in addition to an existing structure, I believe, but it'll be a building to store materials. This is at the Yoder's building supply location in Fairplay. To save us a little time, I'll explain that. You may remember in our last meeting when we discussed the issue of the uses that were under consideration, we talked about, or I talked about, the use of the fact that it was considered to be an industrial activity and therefore had to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for review and consideration. In fact, there had already been a change in the code at that point. The reference to industrial was gone. So in fact, what you're acting upon, and you are tonight too, is the fact that you've got a use that is, while it's a continuation of the same use, is a non-residential use. And the way the code now reads, you have a non-residential activity, new non-residential activity in that overlay area, it does require the board to act upon that case or to decide whether or not to approve the request, a special exception request. The other point would be that we had we really didn't even reference the Appendix A issues last time. That does apply in this case as well. However, what the new code language that had been considered by Planning Commission and approved by Council, the new code language states that the board has the opportunity to consider applying the Appendix A standards or any aspects of the Appendix A standards as part of the approval for that project or for that use. So it's your decision whether or not you utilize any all or none of the criteria contained in Appendix A, which I think is attached to your packet. And in fact, I went ahead and attached the entire Appendix A so that you can see that it's pretty comprehensive. And I think Mr. Honey had explained to us prior to the meeting that he felt that when originally the discussions were occurring about these overlay districts in the Fairplay area, that the real focus there was on the I-85 corridor. And that's what the real intent of that was for, and that certainly makes some sense. But in fact, the way the language read, it applied to Appendix A in this area as well. So now what you have is a request for another building on the site for storage, not for an industrial activity. And you can decide whether or not to approve it as is, or to add conditions, or to include as part of those conditions any of the Appendix A standards. Now, I believe your packet has the maps of this area again, and it shows the plan for this project as well, if I can find it. It's right here, and you can see on the screen the darkened areas where this particular location would be for the addition, but along the frontage of Fairplay Boulevard. But I just wanted to bring your attention to those points primarily because that's where we had our confusion last time. Again, in this case, the 4 criteria, which are also in your packet for approval, are the standard criteria for consideration of a special exception approval that we always take into account, and the board needs to take into account as part of this consideration. So that's all I have. And if you have any other questions, Adam from our staff is here, who has worked on the code issues through Planning Commission and Council, and probably has a better handle on that part of it than I do. That's where, I was obviously a bit confused at the last meeting about what was going on with that language.
So just as a clarification of what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, members of the board, is that this request for special exception is like the previous one except that it's really for a non-residential use versus an industrial use, but we're still looking for a special exception for that, and then we have an option to say that special exception approval would be contingent upon adhering to Appendix A criteria or not. That's our decision to make as a board. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is there, okay, so I guess that's what's in front of us, and now we have a chance to hear about the special exception. And this is special exception hearing for application SE 18-00007, request for construction of a new 78-foot by 100-foot building as addition to an existing warehouse at Yoder's Building Supply at 500 East Fairplay Boulevard, Fairplay, South Carolina. And I guess we've had a statement of matter before the board already, Bill, have we, or Mr. Huggins? Or do you still need to do that?
Just, I haven't touched base on what the criteria are yet, if that's what you're referring to, but no, that's what I've covered is in the packet as well, or in my staff report, so it's all there.
So could we, now the applicant can make your comments, if you'd please come to the podium and state your name, please.
My name's Harley Yoder, Yoder's Building Supply. This is an addition to the other building, and it'll simply just continue, another, I think it was 100 feet. It'll be used to store cabinets and windows.
Is there anything unique about the building that would change the aesthetics from the view from the road?
It'll be just like the previous building.
Okay. Are there any, yes?
I'm not sure where the new building is in relation to the store that I go to. When I drive in there, I go into the, the
Right.
main store. Where are we in relation?
The main store is right there. Where the cursor is.
Oh, sir, where's the cursor? On my side.
Can you see?
Oh, there, I see it,
The
okay.
square building.
That's the main building there. Okay, that's the store. Okay. I got you.
That, the warehouse, the gray part is the new warehouse, and the other gray that's along the other is a shed, overhead roof that will be added to that as well.
So it's in the general area of all the storage areas you've got there.
That's
Where you
right.
store lumber and building supplies, all kinds of stuff. And you're
That's
just
correct.
Putting in a new, I call it a pole building kind of thing that is consistent with all the other buildings you have.
Yes, it's just like the other buildings we have.
You know, what we're talking about here, they're probably the best looking thing in Fairplay now. You know, down there.
Sure.
The Appendix A was never intended to be used for the village of Fairplay. When this thing was drawn up, it got worded wrong in the thing. And I can't see putting extra expense on him to have to go to Appendix A, because it's probably looks better than anything in the Fairplay.
I agree. I think that's entirely appropriate.
Mr. Yoder, I do have one question. Along West Fairplay Boulevard, you have an entrance coming into your storage area.
Yes.
Is that gonna impact that entrance, that entrance will be closed off?
No,
Or it'll still be-
it'll come right up to that entrance.
So you'll still be bringing
That's correct.
materials in that way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Yoder? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now on our agenda is staff comments. Is there anything in addition, Mr. Huggins, you'd like to say?
Adam, do you have anything on this?
And we have no opposition, to just verify there isn't any opposition to this. And you don't have a rebuttal to the opposition, because there wasn't any. And so now we're ready to make a vote. And as you know, we have two ways to vote for this. One is to take all the conditions and vote once for that, or to vote for each one. Do I have a motion to do one or the other?
I move we do all at once.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor of voting it all together, raise your right hand. Motion carried. All right, so now I get to read all these.
Would you like me to read them for you?
Oh, I would love it.
Okay, I'll do that, yes, sir. According to section 38-7.2 of the zoning ordinance, such uses must be, number one, in accordance with the comprehensive plan, is consistent with the spirit, purposes, and the intent and specific requirements of this chapter, to include the definition and intent of the district in which the special exception is being requested. Number two, in the best interest of the county, the convenience of the community and the public welfare. Number three, it's suitable for the property in question and designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be in harmony with and appropriate in appearance to the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. Number four, it's suitable in terms of effects on highway traffic, parking, and safety with adequate access arrangements to protect streets from undue congestion and hazards.
So do I have a motion to accept the special exception request, given that it adheres to the special exception criteria that was just stated?
I move so. I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the special exception, raise your right hand. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, now that we've done, I have one other issue I forgot to bring up earlier. We bypassed it, and that is you need to approve the board calendar for 2019,
Oh, okay.
which is, I'll bring it up here on the screen. There you go.
So it's consistently the third,
Will it let me bring it up on the screen?
is it the third Monday of every month? Is
Yes,
that-
sir, it's the same format
Okay.
and setup as we've had in the past, I believe, isn't it, Adam? Is it fourth Monday now?
Well,
Remember, we had to make a slight adjustment because of the new notification requirements that require us to.
Right,
So you'll see, for example, that you know, the next one in February, Monday, February, whatever that is, I can't read it, but, yeah. It's consistent throughout the year as usual. And as
Okay.
usual, you can always call a special meeting if necessary.
so can I have a motion to accept the Board of Zoning Appeals calendar for 2019?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. And let's see. Then any old business that comes before the board? Any new business? I'd like to bring up one, and that's based on what Mr. Honey has said, that this, leaving it up to the Board of Zoning Appeals to decide whether a special exception is gonna have to adhere to Appendix A, seems like it's way out of our jurisdiction of what we should be deciding on, and we don't have any criteria. So I would like to see us make a recommendation to go back to the Planning Commission to change that so that we are not held to responsible for deciding whether Appendix A adheres to something or not. I think that's just the way it's written now, but I don't think it's fair and right.
That sounds like a planning issue to me. A planning commission issue or something. I mean,
Yeah.
we're a quasi-judicial body,
people
and
in the village down there don't want it.
pardon me?
The people in the village don't want Appendix A to apply to anything, and they were under the impression that it didn't apply in the beginning.
Yeah, because it clearly is kind of in our lap now whenever we review a special exception. It doesn't make sense. Were you gonna say something?
Yes, sir, if I may. So when it came before council, council asked planning commission to look at it because Appendix A did apply to Fair Play Village, and that's obviously not the intent after speaking with multiple people who were involved in the process. However, all the people who were involved in the process weren't there, so the rewrite had to somehow speak to what was there, not knowing what happened in the past, not only from one person, we couldn't just rip off what was there and tear asunder what people put there. So that was the best Band-Aid that we come up with for this. Yes, by no means is this finalized, so you are correct that this should get looked at. Again, I think you all are correct that it should be addressed with perhaps other mechanisms. If they want design standards, great, let them come with some design standards kind of thing, versus having you all do it.
I would like to have us as a board, if the board's in agreement, to ask the planning commission to take this matter up again and to not have the Board of Zoning Appeals responsible for deciding whether Appendix A applies or doesn't apply. Does anybody feel that way and would like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Is there a second?
If I,
Okay, we're in discussion then, so go ahead.
if I may, I do apologize, I was just discussing with Mr. Huggins there. I think we'd better to send it to council, so council could send it to planning commission. That way they can put their fingerprints on it first, that way something doesn't just come up to council without them having prior knowledge of it.
Because council ultimately will have to.
It's
Would you modify your motion to say, to give it to send it to council?
Right.
Okay, is there a second to the modification to the motion?
Second that?
So we now have an amendment that we're voting for on that changes who we send this notification to, so we go to council. If all in favor of changing that so it goes to council, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carried. Now we're on the original motion, which says that we want to give this to council to try to straighten it out so that we're not responsible for Appendix A. Any discussion on that motion? If you're in agreement, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Any other new business? Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Yeah.
The what?
If you'd like a little update on the comprehensive plan and corridor plan, I
Okay.
can be brief about
Okay.
this. We're currently working on the 2019, or I'm sorry, the 2030 comprehensive plan. We have done a lot of outreach, and we're happy to continue on doing any outreach. So if any of you have any professional groups, social groups, religious groups, groups, whatever you got, we're happy to come attend. We've been to, I think 22 meetings of various groups, from the FFA to the kids to the school board things. We've been all over the place. And tonight, actually, a couple planning commission members are at the library board. So if you have any professional groups that y'all are associated with that you'd like for us to come and solicit information about the comprehensive plan, try to give them information about the comp plan, and try to get information out of them, please contact Bill. We'll get on it. Currently, we're also going to work, or soon to be currently, we're working on a corridor plan for 123 between Seneca and Clemson that we have money for a consultant to come and do a study. That should happen at the end of February, beginning of March. We'll keep you up to date on that as well. I'll let y'all know.
Okay. And I just say from a personal point of view, I really appreciate your vote of confidence to be your chairman again. You're a great bunch of people to work with. I really enjoy working with you, and I'm looking forward to a good year together. So thank you.
We're gonna double your pay this year.
I don't think there's any pay increase.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make
Move.
the motion.
The second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.
I tell you, whenever you have to play your neighbors, my right when the microphone went out on it, at the first thing,
Oh, God.
you got to.
Well, welcome back.
Close off.
You're not wearing shorts?
Just got one side.
Right. You
I
got-
was yesterday.
Really, as soon as yesterday, huh? You literally came back today?